Today we're going to look at the next part of turning our Odroid H4 Ultra into a NAS computer. However, there are a few things we have to do before we get to that stage. We need to add two things to our Odroid. First of all is memory. This is a 32GB SODIMM memory card, running at 4800 MTS. We're also going to add 2TB NVMe M2 SSD. Both of these are fitted on the underside of the board. We have the M2 card in place and we have our SODIMM. The H4 Odroids only have a single memory slot. However, it does support DDR5 memory. So with those two in place, we're now ready to look at plugging the computer in. But before we do that, I'm going to look at some peripherals which I've purchased of Odroid to actually enhance our computer. You can buy one of these. This is a barrel jack extension which you can plug into the front of the unit and route your power cable to elsewhere in the case. So for powering the Odroid, you have a couple of choices. You can buy one of these. This is a 15V 4A 60W power supply, which is ideal if you're running the Odroid on its own without any external hard disks. If you're wanting to use external hard disks, you have to use a larger power supply, which Odroid also sell. This is a 19V power supply running at 7A and delivering 133 watts. So for today's demonstration, we're going to be powering up the Odroid with one of these, as this particular Odroid is going to be running 4 20TB Western Digital hard disks, namely 4 of these. An additional accessory you can also purchase is the SATA kit. This gives you a power connector which plugs in to our power connectors at the side here, and a standard SATA data cable. These cables are quite short, but you can buy longer SATA cables and you can quite easily get a SATA power extension to clip into the end here if the case is larger than this will actually reach. Another thing I have purchased are a number of these. These are ready made up power switch and cables. These plug in to the GPIO connector at the side here. This saves you having to press the power and reset buttons at the back. One of the things we're going to look at today is how much power it takes to run this computer. You can set the BIOS to run in turbo mode, which of course will use more power. So to simulate what's happening inside the case for airflow, I'm going to be adding one of these on top just to give us a bit of airflow over the top of the heatsink to keep the temperature on the heatsink down to a reasonable level. So with all that now in place, I'm going to power up the Odroid but without any hard disks connected, so just using the standard M2 SSD on the back of the board. And here we are with the Odroid all cabled up and ready to go. In order to measure the power consumption of our Odroid Ultra, I have a power meter all set up. We have the 19V power supply currently plugged in, but the Odroid has not been powered up yet. So the power supply itself is drawing 1.3 watts. So next we will power on the Odroid. And now we're powered in and showing on the BIOS. At the moment our power draw is up to 15 watts. So we're now going to have a look through our BIOS to see what the settings are like. For the duration of this video, I'm going to leave the BIOS settings as they are, with the default values. So if we look down here, we can see at the bottom it marks total memory as 32GB and the memory frequency at 4800 MHz. And we just have to adjust our system date and time. So if we have a look at the other settings within the BIOS, we have CPU configuration, efficient core information, performance core information, And if we have a look at power and performance, and the thing I'm looking for here is the turbo mode. And the setting we have down in here under power limit 4, as you'll see from the text on the top right hand corner, it tells us since the value is set at 30,000 milliwatts, 30 watts, the CPU will actually be limited to a maximum 10 watt power consumption. If we change this value to 0, then the system will operate in unlimited mode. So I'm going to leave this as it stands at the moment. The Odroid H4 Ultra and the rest of the H4 range, like the H3, supports TPM, the Trusted Platform module. So you will have no difficulty in installing Windows 11 on this machine. If we have a look at the hardware monitor, we can see at the moment our fan is running and the system temperature is currently hovering around 32 to 33 Celsius. We have a large 140mm fan above the heatsink. This is keeping the temperature down. As the processor on this H4 Ultra is an i3 processor, I would strongly suggest having a fan above the heatsink. And we can see from the NVMe setup, it's recognising we have a 2TB SSD in the M2 slot, and our 2 Ethernet ports. And everything is looking healthy. If we pop back and have a look to see what the wattage usage is now. So the usage is still under 15 watts while we're in the BIOS. Obviously at this point we have not yet installed an operating system on the computer. We're purely having a look at the BIOS settings. So with this as a baseline, we can say our Odroid H4 Ultra draws no more than 15 watts at idle. So what we will do in the next video is we will install an operating system, in this case Windows 11 Professional. And having installed that, we will then run some benchmarking tests, seeing how fast the system will perform and how much power it will draw as a result. And then we can turn on the turbo mode to see how much difference that makes. However, that's it for today. Thank you for watching.